Hi, folks. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a long time since I've done a video on, excuse me, cooking something. The main reason I'm doing this one, well, there are a couple of reasons actually. One is to add some variety. I like making different videos about different subjects, and last little while, I mean, Google and YouTube, or Google, the owners of YouTube, they really want your channel to specialize on doing one tiny little thing. And they figure, well, that's what you need to do. But that's not who I am. I'm not one tiny little thing. I'm a bigger thing than that. And my vision of the channel has always been to do different things about different things that interest me, which hopefully would interest some people into watching them. If I'm only going to be doing videos about, I don't know, fixing computer stuff or whatever, that gets boring very quickly and I'm just going to lose interest and not going to bother. But my philosophy, my philosophical reasoning for doing this was to sort of demonstrate how, one's interests contribute to becoming a whole person. And I think so I'm challenging Google and YouTube by making this cooking video, which I haven't made for a long time. So thank you for enduring that little bit that I've just gone through. The other reason I wanted to do this video is because I haven't done one for a long time, and B, my erstwhile camera person, the actual star of this channel, my beautiful wife behind the camera, has requested that I sort of tell her what have I done to this recipe to turn it into the spaghetti sauce that I make. And originally it came from the joy of cooking. It came from here, and I chose this recipe because there's a certain kind of diner experience, a diner Italian style, like sort of, I don't know, generic highway Italian restaurant. And I don't mean to, but it's something that the first time I tasted spaghetti sauce, that's what I tasted. That's what I got. And there's, it's some of them are really well done, and I wanted to figure out how do I do that for myself? How do I create that? So it took a long time, and finally I stumbled on it in here. And I'm gonna just cut that other little bit in where I show the recipe. But this recipe, what it does is it has all basic ingredients, and I'm gonna be using all of those. I'm just doubling that up to make it more possible for a so I don't have, it's for, instead of 1 pound it's 2 pounds. So I'm doubling up the recipe. But there's a step that's never discussed anywhere in this recipe. And the first time I made this, I thought, this is terrible. But there was something about it. The flavors were good, and I for some reason I persisted, and I made it again. And now it's developed into something that's, I think, pretty extraordinary. So on that note, I'll discuss what I've done with that little later as we get into the recipe. I also wanted to show. Now, this is not a cookbook that I would really recommend per se. It's got some good historical bits in it, but my favorite recipe book is this one, America's Test Kitchen Family Cookbook. They are fail-safe. They do recipes like nobody's business, and if you're a North American individual, it's the best of North American family-style cooking. I mean, it's in the title, family. Secondly, and actually, it's debatable whether, a lot of the roots of the family cookbook come from the techniques and style of this book, the New Professional Chef, Culinary Institute of America. And this is based around the French style, and you learn all the techniques of handling food and combining flavor layering and stuff. And I mean, I'm making it sound more complicated than it is, but it's not that complicated. Once you get into it, it's fairly straightforward. But I would really recommend, like, some PBS channels and stuff like that. I mean, I really don't watch television, so there's lots and lots of cooking shows out there. But if you're just starting out, there's really like 1 or 2 knives that I would recommend anybody have in their arsenal. And that would be a good chef's knife. Now this one is designed for a man. This is the big chef knife. There's a smaller one which is better for a woman to hold, slightly smaller, because it's the general size. Not that a woman can't handle this knife per se, but just in general sense, the smaller chef's knife is a little bit more comfortable for the average woman to hold. And then a good cleaver for hacking up chicken bones or what have you. So that's but that's probably that's a little too much. But if you start off with a good chef's knife, you're on your way. And I know I'm sort of stumbling. My nerves are acting up, so I apologize. But I really recommend that if you want to learn how to cook, you choose one recipe to start with, whatever it is that you like. And because you like it, then you put everything you have, everything you are into that recipe. And as they say that the way to a person's heart is through their stomach. I mean, I think that's really true, and it's to your own stomach, your own heart, and that's the way. It's that we in North America we're always too busy running around trying to earn a living, but we can start simply. Start with one recipe. Learn how to do that well, to perfect it, and you'll discover things that will lead to another recipe, and before you know it, you're a good cook. So I'll be back, and then we'll get started. Oh, I wanted to mention one other thing, and that is invest in a good pot. A good Dutch oven with a heavy bottom will not fail you. This is almost a must. So a heavy pot, a good knife, a decent cookbook, a recipe, and you're off to the races. And today we're making spaghetti sauce. So we'll be right back. All right, we got some of the prep started. We opened the cans, we got the meat out. We did the stock a little earlier. Calls for a cup of stock for this amount. Got some onions out and some garlic. We got bay leaves. We got 5 cloves, about 4 or 5 cloves is what you'll need. And now, if you're in prison, you have all the time in the world to slice this up into extremely fine bits. But we're not in prison yet. So, well, anyway. So good garlic press is good, but you don't really super need this. This is just convenient. The Xylus one used to be the one they liked on the America's Test Kitchen, but then they kept scraping it sort of like really roughly. This is a non-stick surface on there, and they sort of wore off the non-stick surface. But because I was forewarned, I just very carefully. It's only around this circular area that it is worn off. And now some other one, but it comes in 2 parts. The other one that they use now, and I don't like it as much for some reason. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So instead of using a razor blade, we use a garlic press to do that. And now the onions. Now the onions are. There's so many different ways that you can chop an onion, and I like doing them this way. So I take the front and the back off, make a line, score them, and I peel the skin off. And I don't try too hard to make it as thin, like the thinnest skin. I mean, if it's a layer, I don't care. I mean, onions are probably, I'm not in a prison camp. I'm not in Siberia. Whoa! I'm not in Siberia. So, thankfully. So I don't really worry. I just want to get this done. But there is a little kind of a cool technique which I think I'd like to demonstrate to you. So I'll peel that off. And I don't like this that stuff, whatever that is. Let's get that. I'll stop singing. It's one, I think, part of our culture that if there's any silence at all, we tend to not be able to deal with it. So let's put this away. Oh, we'll do like a magic transition here. So that will be, the onions. Oh my God, I'm tired at all. So let me get the bowl out. So what I'd like to do is take one of the onions, cut it in half, and then hold the knife. Now, and then hold it on either side like this, and then bring the knife down in between. So then you get a straight edge. Turn it 90 degrees or whatever have you, and then start cutting this way. Now, this gives you the ability to make as fine a dice as you need. Now, for this particular recipe, it doesn't have to be that fine. Oh, excuse me. Let's think about all the sad things in our lives. The side. There we go. Yeah. I don't have a super trick for doing that. A lot of times I don't know why I don't seem to be terribly affected by the off gassing of the onions. But sometimes maybe it's the lights. As soon as it's warm in here, so it just expands quite rapidly, filling up the space. Whew. Yeah, I used to work in a restaurant. I worked as a sandwich maker. So I've been around good food a lot. Now, as a child, grew up quite poor, and from a single-family home. And in my case, our case, I was moved around a lot, and well, I got hungry a lot. So I have an appreciation for good food and an insistence on quality. Now, that's not to say, that's why I like this recipe, because canned tomatoes, canned tomato paste, they keep really well, and they're very nutritious, extremely nutritious. Onions, I mean, this is all very cheap stuff. Excuse me. So, while I like good food, and I mean, I also am conscious of the fact that sometimes we can't always afford it. Now, this is where having some skill and some facility in making your own food comes into its own. And as I said before, starting with one recipe, and there we go, starting with one recipe is the way to go. So, alright, we're going to heat the pan up. I'm going to put some oil in there, and then we'll be ready to do the onion. So, put that on about 5 and a bit, medium-ish, medium-high-ish, and we'll soften the onions, and anyway, we'll get to that, and we'll be right back. Okay, it's warmed up a little bit. Now, this is the joy of cooking. They say put in, I think, even some ridiculous amount of olive oil, and I'm not going to do quite that much, but it's still, to me, and I think to most of our sensibilities, it's a lot of olive oil. So there's about close to a third cup, half a cup, something like that. So that's about it. So if you look at that, I mean, that's a lot. And this is what threw me off the first time doing this recipe, because all of that olive oil just stayed in the sauce. And to a modern taste, it just doesn't work. So first we'll just soften the excuse me, soften the onions. Okay, so the onions have softened quite a bit, and it's been about 5, 6, 7 minutes, and we're ready for the garlic. So with garlic, you just want to put it in there and let it bloom for about 10 or 15 seconds so the aromatics kind of develop. And that's generally the rule with garlic, because garlic will burn and turn bitter. So you never really cook it by itself, unless that's exactly what you want. There are some recipes that call for burnt garlic. Ah, yeah, so the aroma starts building very quickly. Okay, so once that happens, we're ready to put in the meat. So we have half a pound of lean ground pork and 2 pounds of extra lean ground beef. And I think in the United States they call this 10%. I'm not sure. But the leaner the better. Then the object is to break it up and cook it. Now, at this point, I usually preload, or front load, I guess they call it, the salt and the pepper. So we have 3 teaspoons, 3 teaspoons of salt. So mix that in. Now it's quite a lot of salt, so make sure that's mixed in very well. Now, as you're breaking up the meat and it's cooking, it will distribute itself through there. And there's also about a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. I'm a strong proponent of fresh ground pepper. It used to be more expensive than gold. Actually, probably still is. And that whatever that weird dust is that you see in diners, it's a very poor cousin to fresh ground pepper. Now, as you get older, your taste buds tend to diminish a bit. And when I was younger, I wouldn't have done this, but this is some chili flakes, and you just, to your personal taste, you put in a few. I don't like to put in a lot because I don't like it to overpower the rest of the ingredients. But the thing about chilies, or chili spices, or chili in general, is that it's an oil-activated spice. So it comes into its own when it's cooked in oils, or there's a lot of oil or fats present. So there. So I'll get that nicely cooked. Is done. It looks like we're ready to get this party started. Right, let's give it a stir. I tend to overstir my food. It's I don't know why. It's just one of those things. Shouldn't really need to have to do that. And this, I do this every 3 times. Okay, right. So here we have 1 can of. Actually, what I'll do is I'll put in the stock first. So that's 1 cup of beef stock. Now this is something called Bovril. Fresh stock is obviously better. Low sodium would probably be better still. Top of that, this is in our case this is just regular Bovril beef stock. So now we add 1 can of pureed crushed tomatoes. And it doesn't really matter what brand they're, as long as they're good quality. There we go. And now a jar of diced tomatoes. Tomate en dés. Dés. And 2 cans. In this case, we've got the herb and spice. So it's like sort of like a little fail-safe in case you're, in case your own the herbs that we're going to be adding later fail to have enough flavor. But generally, plain. Oh, that's a bit of onion I got escaped from the chopping board. Generally, just plain tomatoes or tomato paste is fine. Whatever's on sale, you know what I mean? Whatever's on sale. Okay, so now incorporate that carefully. And you can see the oil has come to the surface. Or oils, oil. I'm going to be dealing with that later on. Just give it a stir around, and it's already starting to look like a sauce. Now we're going to, before we finish off the dish, we're going to let that simmer for about 90 minutes. So there, that's a right. That looks nice and incorporated. There we go. And a few bay leaves now. I like 3 or 4 or 5 good sized ones. As long as you can fish them out later. So they're not really terribly good to eat. So there we go. Now, the key, you must remember this, is to turn down the stove to simmer. So in our case here, whoops, that's too low, but 2 and a bit, 2 1/3, 2 1/2, something like that, maybe, depending on how hot your stove is. And that's another little thing, where, practice makes perfect. If you make whatever dish it is that you make a few times, then you get better at it. All right, we're going to let that cook and simmer, and I'll do a little time lapse. Now, be careful not to stir this for the next 1.5 hours at least. You can let it cook for 2 hours if you feel like it. Okay, so we'll be back soon. Okay, this is this is cooked now for 2 hours or so. We're just about to do the last little thing. Now, at the start, I put in a pretty goodly amount of the olive oil, but here's the trick, and I can't believe how simple this is, and how easy it is to not know about it. Fumble fingers. There's a timer going off. So you skim the oil off. So because we haven't stirred it up, the oil just comes up to the surface, and now we just skim it off. And if we're careful, we can get most of it off. So there you can see, and there's the sauce more watery portion here at the top. So we don't want to scoop all of that off because that will make it too dense. So now we're free to stir it. And we're not done yet. There's still a fair bit to do. So I'll get out the bay leaves. There we go. Okay, you can cut those. Okay, actually, I was going to say, okay, I'm going to get set up to put in the herbs and the mushrooms. Mushrooms are cleaned. So I'll try to give them a quick little dry here. Like so. Put those aside for a minute. I have to get my glasses. So what we have here is fresh basil. Now this is not really that super important. The preference is obviously fresh. You want fresh, but if you can't find it, or it's hard to find it, or you can't afford it, or whatever, then it's perfectly fine to use dried. But then the dried herb should be fresh. Like, don't have it. Don't use stuff that's been sitting around for 6 months or whatever, because it loses all its flavor, and you almost might as well be putting grass in there. I mean, lawn clippings, seriously. So, so just take a bunch of leaves like this. As I say, probably don't super necessarily need to do this. Dried is perfectly acceptable. But I thought, since I'm making a YouTube video, I'd go all out and just chiffonade these things. And the smell that's coming off this is just incredible. It's beautiful stuff. Incredible. So there we go. And now I'll just plop that right in there. I may add just a little bit of dried to bucket. Oh, maybe not. I should just put a few more of these. Might as well use the whole bunch. I'm not planning any. Actually, maybe I have some fish. Maybe we'll do some fish with the rest of the fresh basil there. Okay, just a little bit extra here. Oh, that smells really good. Really good. There we go. And some oregano. So that's it, really. It's just basil and oregano. And here we are. I'll chop some of this stuff up. Oh, wow. Oh, that's really nice. It just, if you've never done this with fresh herbs, you have to try it. You just have to try it. And I can see why people just, won't accept anything else after a while, except, if you can't afford it. But if you're trying to impress somebody, going the extra mile with some fresh herbs is, not only a benefit to yourself, but benefit to your guest. I definitely recommend that, because sometimes there's just no substitute, and it's not that hard. You can grow this stuff in your window if you've got the space. But as I say, dried is perfectly acceptable, but try and make sure it's like fresh dried, and if there's an aroma coming off of it, there should be some sort of smell when you rub it in your fingers. But at any rate, it's still, I think, no matter what, it still beats some crappy jar or crappy can or something. It's just, and that stuff is just, I don't know, it's like, I don't know. It's like an insult to food. Memories of food. But okay, let's get in there. Sometimes I never know. I don't know when to stop putting this stuff in there. I should have probably picked this earlier to make it faster, but it does show you how it's done, and I can speed this up a little bit, I guess. So here we are. Take the stalks out. A bit more. Okay. There we go. Then we toss that in with the basil. Okay, give that a little stir. Now this is sort of a basic, very basic kind of spaghetti sauce. So if there are other herbs you like, or other things you'd like to put in, even red wine, perhaps. I like putting in a little bit of balsamic vinegar, and I think I'll put in a little bit of that after. That's optional, but it does add a little something to it, I think. So there, now the mushrooms, which I cleaned. Don't have to be too fine with this, just I'm showing off a little bit, I guess. I'm not like a super pro by any means, but I have done this a few times. And that's the thing, if you got good knife control, you tuck your fingers out of the way. It's actually a pretty easy skill to pick up. So you get an overheating warning from the A6000. I was doing a time lapse of the sauce actually cooking there, and I messed up the time lapse because the batteries were running low. I bought like two spare batteries, and it's still like, ugh, it's way not too much. This is the first, probably more complicated video that I've actually shot, or with the assistance of my lovely wife here. So we're having some technical issues. We're almost done. Almost done. Now the thing about the mushrooms I find with the sauce is that they add some, there's a lot high water content in mushrooms, so they add a bit of liquid as they soften in the sauce. So finish chopping those. Well, I probably put a little more than is strictly called for. So it's like one of those little cello packages that you buy. It's probably around 2 cups worth or so. You can use a cup or more or less as you're inclined. So stir those in. looks lovely with the nice bits of fresh green in there. So that's that. I'm going to put a tiny little bit of balsamic vinegar. Oh, this one's not even opened. Let's see here. There we go. Yeah. I don't know, about a quarter cup or so. Third cup? No, quarter cup. It's very strong. The taste, I don't know if it appeals to everyone, but you get a similar effect with a bit of red wine. A dry red wine, a little bit. But again, that's optional too. Just one of those things that you can add if it appeals to you. And there we go. So let that simmer again for another 15 or 20 minutes, and we're done. That's it. We're done. Normally, I would have prepared a bit of pasta, and we would have put some on there. But I have to get changed, and it's been a busy day filming and everything. So I'm just going to do a little taste test, see how this turned out. A la Galloping Gourmet, I guess, who pioneered that. See how this tastes. Oh my God. Oh, it's like tart. Oh, you can really tell the taste of the fresh herbs. And the color is just beautiful. It's nice consistency. This is a really, really nice sauce, if I say so myself. Please, give this a try. And thanks for watching. That's really good.